are here today. Of course, beginning with you, Rascal and G.
Yes, greetings, Brother Devon, and greetings to the listening audience here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, Layamiga and Oli, and the African diaspora listening via the World Wide Web. We are here today, Brother Devon, to bring the message of the ancestors, basically what is taking place on the African continent, especially in the Sahel states, and Brother Abraham Traore in particular. And we're saying that at this particular time in our development, we're at a historical crossroads as a people. We've been subjugation for, say, at least 1,000 years now. And we are saying at this particular juncture where the forces of oppression, exploitation and discrimination, the white supremacists and the fascist forces want to turn back our progress. When I was here the last time, I played a clip from Mr. Eric Prince, where he's saying basically that he wants to return us back to, take over us again in terms of direct colonization. And there's a French general who also mentioned that, there's a lot of forces, from the white supremacists spectrum that want to turn back our progress. But we see what is taking place in the Sahel states and our own brother Abraham Traore in particular, where Mr. Langley went in front of the U.S. Senate and said basically that Brother Traore is using the resources of Burkina Faso, gold in particular, to enrich himself. And as African people, and we are aware of what is happening on the African continent, especially in the Sahel states, we know that's a total lie. That's the same thing they said about Brother Muammar Gaddafi. So we are saying now, here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the movement for national unity and the African consciousness movement, we are gathering and calling upon our people to gather, to organize ourselves, remobilizing them, to organize themselves, to deal in terms of what we are facing. We are at war, we know that, because war has been waging all around the world, not only in Ukraine and in Palestine, but on the African continent in particular. And one of the ways that our oppressors use is divide and rule tactic. In here in the Federation, we are saying, we are calling upon our people, this is the time for us to unite. We have to repent for our sins, because we have sinned politically against each other in terms of the divide that Britain has put on us in terms of the different parties. We're saying that we have to speak with one voice, and the time is now. So we are saying basically that as we call for us to unify here in the Federation and to link directly, sorry about that, to link directly with our brothers and sisters in the Sahel states. You understand? Because that is where the revolutionary spirit is at this particular time. We're talking about revolutionary Pan-Africanism. And the brothers in the Sahel states is laying the foundation for our total liberation. So, I will stop there for now and let Brother Jakaya come in. But before, when we return, I want to introduce you to some information to lay the groundwork to show you what we are dealing with.
Please, German, go ahead.
Yes, greetings to the general public once more. Thanks for being here. We're in solidarity with, Burkina Faso and the Sahel states. So, we give thanks for the opportunity for us to be here at this time. I just want to let the listening public know that we also here promoting an event that we're going to be having, this Friday and every other Friday, every 2 Fridays in the month. Is going to begin with the second Friday and the last Friday. And it's the mega meetings of Africa's First and AES SKN in support of Abraham Traore, AES/Africa, from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. June 13th and 27, 2005, at the African Village, the Circus Bar Stay in St. Kitts. For more information, call 668-1992 every second and last Friday monthly. So, to continue on that, we definitely have to be in unison with what is taking place in Africa. As we know, Africa has a vast, immense amount of wealth, natural resources, and we in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, also in the region, could definitely use, the mechanism of gold, other resources that actually, have value. As we know, the dollar is not really backed by anything today. We also know that, the immense bill that we have in the Federation here when it comes to the IMF and all of these things. So all of these things can be cleared up and paid off if we make the right steps. We need to really see and envision that Africa is the new superpower. We have to see that Africa is rising to that potential where it can take care of not only the billions of citizens that live there, but also in the 6th region, which is called the African diaspora right now, where we at, So these are the fundamental changes that we're looking for, from our governance, our government officials who represent us. They should actually be aligned, to what is really taking place in Africa right now, and not really more aligning themselves to European nations and American states. So I'll stop there for now and let Raskolunji continue.
Before we talk about, because earlier you talked about mobilization of our people, but before we could talk about mobilization of our people, what does unity among our people mean to you, and why do you believe that it is urgent or important at this time?
Because we're at a crossroads. Babylon system, the imperialist system, white supremacy is in crisis. Capitalism is in crisis. You understand? We could see what is taking place in terms of the inflationary rate that is taking place, not only in the Federation but globally. You see, the capitalist system globally is in crisis. And it started with COVID. You understand? A lot of people don't realize that the reason why COVID was brought upon us is because of the capitalist crisis. It imploded on itself. Now, we had a crisis in 2002, I think that was the dot-com bubble. We had another crisis in 2008, which was the housing bubble. And now we had the COVID crisis. You see? So what I'm trying to show you now is that capitalism is getting worse and worse. Now, right now, we know that the economy is very sluggish. A lot of people is blaming the government. I don't blame the government. The only thing I see the government doing is spending wasteful money. But the main primary reason why the economy is sluggish is because of COVID. COVID mashed up our economies to put more pressure on us so that we could be more dependent on imperialism and fascism. You see? So what we are saying now, what is taking place in the Sahel states, Brother Abraham Traore, he's not turning to the IMF, he's not turning to the World Bank, he's depending on his resources. So we are saying what Granny said, self-respect, self-esteem, self-reliance and self-determination. That is what Brother Abraham Traore is dealing with. And what Granny said, follow the leader. Abraham Traore is the leader for all black people globally. So that's why you see we have to make that link. And before I go on, I just want to make this point that the essential things we want to organize around is that the Pan-African wallet, the Sahel states put out the Pan-African wallet, and Burkina Faso in particular, where the Pan-African wallet, once we invest in it, because we want to set up a cooperative here, so when we pool our monies collectively, we invest in the African wallet, where it will boost the gold reserves in Burkina Faso, because Burkina Faso and all the Sahel states that have gold. So what we're doing, when you raise the gold reserve, that will in enable us to establish our own African currency, so we don't have to depend on the CFA franc or the US dollar. You see, that's the whole idea that Brother Muammar Gaddafi had. That's why he was removed from power and killed. So we are saying that we see that all these things are being put into place. You understand? That's why we're talking about, once we unify here and link with the Sahel states, we want to raise funds also to take a delegation to Burkina Faso and the Sahel states, so that we could get our own citizenship. Because the Sahel states is giving out citizenship to Africans all around the world. So we are saying that based on those three initiatives, we're seeing where our unity could be forged, and the foundation is laid, right? So that we could be truly independent and be a liberated people. For the past, say, 1,000 years now, we have been in bondage, and we are saying that we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and this is the way for us to go and follow what is happening in the Sahel states, because that is our model and that is our blueprint. But Brother Devon, I like to play a tape here, so we people could get a proper understanding how the European powers want to keep us in subjugation.
If you wanted to stop Africa from becoming a superpower, you wouldn't have to invent a new strategy. The blueprint has already been written, tested, and perfected over centuries. You'd start by making sure Africa never unites. The easiest way to do that is by keeping people divided along ethnic, tribal, and religious lines. If they ever start working together, remind them of past grievances. Stoke old wounds, fund separatist movements, keep border disputes unresolved. Make sure every time they take one step forward, they take 2 steps back because they're too busy fighting each other. You'd install leaders who serve foreign interests, not their people. Find the most corrupt, the most easily manipulated, the ones who crave wealth and status more than progress. Offer them power in exchange for loyalty. If a leader rises who actually cares about Africa, get rid of them. Assassinate them if necessary. But if that's too messy, just destabilize their government and back a coup. If they talk about nationalizing resources, make an example out of them. If they try to unite Africa, take them out before the idea spreads. You'd keep Africa economically weak by making sure it never industrializes. Let them export raw materials, but never process them themselves. Control the mines, the oil fields, the rare earth minerals. Keep them selling cheap and buying expensive. If a country tries to break free and build its own industries, sabotage it. Place sanctions, destabilize its currency, fund local opposition, crash its economy. If that doesn't work, orchestrate a civil war. People can't build when they're too busy trying to survive. You'd make sure their education system produces workers, not innovators. Teach them history that glorifies their oppressors. Make them think their cultures are primitive. Their ancestors were savages. Their future depends on foreign approval. Train them to memorize, not to think critically. Keep their best and brightest looking overseas for opportunities. Make them dream of escaping Africa rather than fixing it. Offer scholarships that take their top minds to the West and never encourage them to return. Let the continent keep training doctors and engineers only for them to go enrich other nations. You'd control their narratives. Own their media, control their stories, dictate their image to the world. Make them believe they are corrupt, hopeless, eternally in crisis. Flood their screens with poverty porn and war zones. Show them charity ads that make them believe they are helpless without foreign aid. Downplay their successes. Twist their victories into isolated incidents. If an African country develops a groundbreaking innovation, credit a foreign investor. If an African leader implements a successful policy, frame it as an anomaly rather than proof of competence. You'd make sure they remain dependent. Drown them in debt. Offer loans with impossible conditions. Force them to privatize everything so foreign corporations own their water, their electricity, their land. When they struggle, give them just enough aid to keep them alive, but never enough to make them self-sufficient. Use charities to create a culture of reliance rather than resilience. Make them think foreign intervention is necessary, that they can't solve their own problems, that they always need help from the outside. You'd suppress their military strength. Keep their armies weak, their defense industries non-existent. Sell them weapons to fight each other, but never let them develop high-tech military technology. If a country tries to build a strong defense system, accuse them of being a threat to stability. Make sure they always need foreign peacekeepers, foreign military bases, foreign advisors controlling their security. Keep them vulnerable to invasion, coups, and foreign interference. The formula is simple. Divide, corrupt, exploit, miseducate, control. Keep them fighting each other. Keep them looking outside for solutions. Keep them poor, dependent, insecure. Make sure every attempt to break free is met with resistance so strong that the next generation thinks twice before trying again. This isn't a theory. It's history. The real question isn't how to stop Africa from becoming a superpower. It's how Africa can break the cycle despite every effort to keep it down.
So my brother, that summarizes everything basically what we're talking about, and we could see it manifesting itself. We see that they want to take out Brother Abraham Traore. So we are saying now, if they take out Brother Abraham Traore, what are the consequences? We have options. We call a general strike. You see on April 30th, where the world gathered, black people globally gathered to show solidarity with Brother Abraham Traore. So what we do, we call a general strike. We shut down the economy. We don't move. So we're saying that's one of the options that we have, but we have many more. But we're just, putting that out there so people could have an idea that, what needs to be done.
But you talked about capitalism. Do you believe it forces us to compete rather than collaborate?
State that again, I didn't get that.
So you spoke about capitalism earlier. Do you believe it forces us as a people to compete instead of collaborate?
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's the fundamental root of capitalism. Mm-hmm. It's very competitive. It's a pyramid scheme basically, where you have one individual at the top and you have everybody else at the bottom, basically trying to get crumbs from the table of that 1%, which is the elite of the world today. So capitalism is not really working, especially for us in the West here. It's not.
Would you say it's, some argue that it's a modern form of slavery? What is your opinion on that?
I would say that is definitely true, because I would tie that in with neo-colonialism, where they're just using a new form, new strategy of conquering us, basically, and keeping us suppressed.
Well, you talk about capitalism. It's based on profit. You understand what I'm saying? And remember, we were property. We were capital. Back in, when we was enslaved, if the master needed some capital, he used us. Just like if you have a mortgage, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. So how are you going to be something that you was based on your exploitation? How you want to defend that? It don't make sense.
We also had these insurance agencies. Remember, we had the Barclays, who was an insurance, J.P. Morgan. All these people was in insurance agencies for the slave trade. So you could see where they benefited and made mad amount of money. This is a lucrative investment, slavery. The
reason why we are so poor and the metropolitan countries are so rich, so Europe and the European Union and North America, is because they got the wealth from our labor that we produce and didn't pay us as yet. We're still waiting for reparations. You see? So we're saying in terms of reparation, we have a figure. They also over $500 trillion. We ain't talking about the Caribbean, they're just talking about St. Kitts alone. And we're talking about we have a sluggish economy. And then our people are not struggling to get what is duly ours in terms of reparations. You see what I'm saying? So the point I'm making is that here now we're at this historical moment where we're calling on the unification of our people based on the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And like I said, we have to atone for our sins because we have sinned against each other based on the political colonial structure that we have in place. So we're saying based on revolutionary Pan-Africanism, we need to obliterate that system, which is colonialism.
It's 11:27. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation here on The Edge. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, guess what? It's Radio Market.
Call in and sell your merchandise. You can negotiate and negotiate, give and trade.
We on radio, internet, and TV.
Like us, share us, and subscribe to
ZIZonline.com.
And remember, we don't sell nothing over $5,000. Join us right here on ZIZ Radio every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. Call 465-1977, 465-1903, or 662-8674. ZIZ Radio, giving back to the people.
You've worked hard to build your dream home. Now it's time to protect it with ICWI's A-Plus homeowners policy. From hurricane damage to unexpected losses, we've got you covered with the best homeowners protection in the region. Protect your most valuable asset with coverage for what matters most when it matters the most. ICWI, we know insurance. You know you're protected. ICWI, serving you is all we do. Click, call, or visit ICWI today. Visit us at 1 Seabird Rock Road. Call 465-8753 or ICWI.com.
The views and opinions expressed by participants and callers during this program are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, its management, or sponsors. The station accepts no responsibility for statements made. Welcome back to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and thank you for joining me in the program for today. For those of you who may just be tuning in, we have Rascalanji and Priest Jermaine in studio with us today, and we are speaking on the unification of our people. Before we went for the break, Rascalanji, you spoke about reparations, which has opened up my mind to some of the questions that I wanted to ask, and for the general audience to think about as well. And when you spoke about reparations, I think, well, over the past couple of years, when you hear reparations, you think about the financial aspect of it. What about the educational, spiritual, land-based, or whatever? Do you believe those are other forms of reparations that our people would accept? Or should we accept those other forms of reparations? So, financial in addition to educational, spiritual, land-based, and so on.
Yeah, because what I'm saying, we could use those funds to re-educate ourselves. Because we need to be re-educated. What happens is that our people, okay, for instance, if you're in a coma, you're not dead. It's just that you're not conscious. The problem that facing our people is that we are not conscious of who we are. Because our story has not been told to us in the proper way. You see what I'm saying? No, we have examples. No, here is Mr. Langley. Now, he's just a black man, you know, who was being indoctrinated by our oppressors. He said his main interest is to protect the interests of the United States. So what about black people's interests? Based on our history coming out of enslavement, colonialism, neocolonialism, right? Because we're in the stage of neocolonialism. We are not a free people as yet. The struggle continues. So we are saying is that he has been indoctrinated to protect the enemy's interests. So we have to re-educate our people to protect our people's interests. And our people's interest is through African liberation. Protecting our resources. Getting the full reward for what we deserve in terms of all the natural resources we have. Whether it's coltan, whether it's uranium, whether it's oil, where there is gold. Imagine France doesn't have a gold mine, but they have the 4th largest reserve of gold. Where they get it? You see? It was stolen. So, that's just the position. So that's why we call upon our people to unify themselves and protect their own interests, not only here in the Federation, but everywhere we are globally, because we are global people. And we saw that on April 30th in terms of the solidarity we showed for Brother Ibrahim Traore.
Priest German, your take on reparations, whether you believe it should be financial in addition to education-based, spiritual, land-based.
Yeah, I think it should be multifaceted. It shouldn't just be monetary. We have a great amount of as the root word is repair. So there's a lot of repair that need to be done within our societies, and it's just like I said, it's not just monetary.
Right.
We need to educate the people on a different level. For instance, we have robotics, we have AI, we have a different, the world is going into a different scenery right now,
right,
where we need our citizens, black people on this side of the globe, to understand where we at, especially when it comes to in being, aligned with China, aligned with the US, and raising that standard. So I think reparations is definitely one of those things that is needed. And just to give another example of
sure.
What reparations can do. Currently in Burkina Faso right now, there are 25 massive projects that have been undertaken by the government of Burkina Faso to transform the country. And I will just go into a bit of them. One is a tomato processing factory cultivating agro-business. One of the flagship agricultural progress is the tomato processing factory located in Bobo de Lasso, a region well suited for tomato cultivation. 2. The Gold Bar Refinery, adding value to natural resources. Burkina Faso is the 4th largest gold producer in Africa, yet historically most of its gold was exported in raw form for refining abroad, and construction of a gold bar refinery marks a turning point. So that's basically what we are saying. Like, we need Africans in Africa to have that knowledge of how to refine their own gold, and that is a part of reparations. That is justice, you understand, being meted out. Number 3, a military uniform and textile manufacturing plant to equip national defense and to create jobs in the textile industry. 4, a national cement factory, reducing reliance on imported construction materials. 5, the National Pharmaceutical Production Center, enhancing local production of essential drugs and medicinal supplies. 6, strategic grain reserve program for food security and price stabilization. 7, solar energy farms to provide clean, sustainable energy and reduce power outage. That is another thing we could also do here in St. Kitts. We could actually have the citizens of St. Kitts now turning over from that grader where we're using fossil fuel, and we have abundant amount of sunshine. We have wind farms that we could be creating. All of these things now is what we need money from our oppressors and our colonialists. Like I say, in the form of reparation, these things can be taken care of. 8, water catchment and purification systems. 9, road and rail network expansion. 10, youth entrepreneurship hubs, supporting innovation and local enterprise development. 11. National digital infrastructure development, bridging the digital divide. 12. Agro-industrial park for every region, transforming raw crops production into value-added products. 13. State-led housing projects, addressing urban housing shortage. 14. Livestock and meat processing plant, creating a robust livestock value chain. 15. Local motorbike assembly plant, promoting domestic manufacturing of popular transport modes. 16. National Bank of Investment and Development, financing local enterprise and industries. 17. Public transportation system modernization, increasing mobility and connectivity. 18. Women-led agriculture cooperative initiative, promoting gender inclusion in rural economies. 19. National AI and Robotics Center, investing in future-ready technologies. 20. National education infrastructure, building schools and technological colleges. 21. Rural electrification program, extending electricity to off-grid communities. 22. Local fertilization and pesticides production, reducing agricultural input dependency. 23. National irrigation scheme for year-round farming, countering drought and improving yield. 24. National aviation school and airport expansion, enhancing domestic and international connectivity. At this present point, Burkina Faso is developing their own airline. They're actually working on another strip in Bobo de Lasso, and they're actually right now upgrading the Thomas Sankara International Airport. 25, last but not least, the establishment of a national strategic investment fund designed to consolidate state ownership into critical sectors and support long-term national projects. So those are some of the, advancement that is taking place right now in Burkina Faso, because they take in charge of their own resources. So that is something we definitely can do once we, do the same here in the Federation.
Awesome. Did you wanted to make an intervention?
Well, basically, all what he outlined, that's the blueprint we are saying. We want it right here too, and everywhere that we are as a people. Because, like I say, they're laying the foundation. When you build a house, you gotta have a foundation. So this foundation is being laid solid, so that Babylon can't shake us again.
There's some people, as we were talking about reparations, there's some people who would say it's too late, or it's a waste of time. What is your response to that?
It's never too late. It's never too late. Is it too late when someone comes in your house and take everything you got? And what is the what is the means? How you're gonna get your stuff back? How are you gonna go through? So it's never too late. As you know, in certain cases, they say, certain cases the time doesn't really run out on those cases. So we definitely have to press along with such agitation.
Reparation, there's no, I can't remember the terminology, but there's a statute of limitations.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
And not only that, reparations fall under international law.
Yeah.
We could take them to court. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of options that we have. So we're saying to our people that all these things are tying and the struggle continues. We cannot stop wanting what belongs to us, because the oppressors don't want to keep exploiting us. And we're saying that the time has come for us to control our destiny. For instance, in the Sahel states, when they told France to leave, France said they're not leaving. They're not leaving, and then we are the most poorest nations on the face of the earth. So a country like Burkina Faso is rated one of the poorest countries in the world. Even if you take Niger, where France is using uranium to light up France. Mm-hmm. The uranium comes from Niger. And in Niger, there's no electricity. Mm-hmm. The majority of the people doesn't have electrification or lights. So we're seeing this disparity of, how our people are living and how the metropolitan countries are living. Yeah. And they keep exploiting us. Mm-hmm. So we are saying that the time has come for us to take responsibility for our situation and chart a way forward to liberate ourselves.
Mm-hmm. We're going to open the phone lines and begin taking calls at 467-1977 and 1903. But as we wait for the calls to come in, so you gave a list of some of the developments that are happening in Burkina Faso. What is your vision, and perhaps you can jump in here as well, Escalanji, what is your vision of a Caribbean economy that is built for its people and truly for its people?
Yes.
In terms of what would you like to see, or what should we do differently than what we are currently doing now?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, me personally, I would love to see the Caribbean come together and use their resources that they have, that we have here. For instance, we have geothermal energy in Nevis that could be harnessed. You understand? And that could also supply energy to us here in St. Kitts, and even, taking it probably to Mountstrat and those places that are close proximity, If you go into certain areas in Jamaica, you have bauxite. Different places in the Caribbean have different things. But what we need to do, just like back in the days when there was attempting federation with the OECS and CARICOM and all these things, we really, really, really need to get serious with that, and see what each country can provide. And let's build a united bloc here in the Caribbean, We could also do away with the EC dollar in time to come. You understand me? And have our own currency, like we're saying, that is backed by something substantial. You understand?
But as you spoke about having a body, we have CARICOM.
Yes.
Do you think CARICOM has been doing enough as it relates to advocating for reparations? And when I say CARICOM, I'm also referring to our Caribbean leaders. Have they been doing enough to advocate for reparations? And if not, what more you think can be done?
Well, basically, we need to put more pressure on our leadership when it comes to reparations. Because I'm a member of the reparations committee here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we're saying basically it's like, not only here in the Federation, but throughout the Caribbean, the governments are not doing what they should be doing when it comes to reparation. They're facilitating it, but that's basically, they're not using the power that they have to put pressure on the people who owe us reparations. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot more work that needs to be done. We need to put pressure on our governments so they could act in the proper way in order to force our oppressors to give us reparations. You see, because every time the question of reparation come up, England in particular is saying, oh, that's been a long time, we don't see that, right? But they keep oppressing us, they keep exploiting us. They don't want us to rise. So how come we can't get reparation, but you want to keep exploiting us? You see what I'm saying? So what Brother Jakaya outlined there, in terms of the development that is taking place in the Sahel states and Burkina Faso. For instance, take the hemp industry, or the ganja industry, the weed industry. From a commercial point of view, I'm not talking about the medicinal point of view, right? From a commercial point of view, an industrial point of view, we could create over 300 different industries from using ganja alone. You could make clothing, you could make shoes, you could make building material, you could use it, we could make paper. So all these things we could do ourselves. But what happens is that the way how the colonial structure is set up is that the metropolitan countries don't want us to provide up for ourselves. They want us to keep depending on them so they could send, because we are market, for their goods. And they have said these things explicitly. They don't want us to develop industry. For instance, if you take the contradiction now between China, the trade war between China and the United States, where Mr. Trump is putting tariffs on the whole globe, because true capitalism is in a crisis and the hegemon is in a crisis. They want the globe now to finance them out of the dilemma that they're in. But it can't work because China is far ahead. China is the leading power in the world today. Now how China got that? The United States took its technology to China for cheaper labor. You understand? Because they didn't want to pay the American worker what they deserve. So China said, okay, come on. We ain't got a problem with that. But they got the technology, they got the information. Now they have developed it to a point where, okay, let me take the call.
We have a call on the line. We'll take our first call for the morning. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Return. Again, a heavy feedback, boy.
Yes, caller, go ahead. I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
You hear me, you say?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly. Go ahead.
I want to just interject a point here. Greetings to the brethren, greetings the host. One, the brethren outline about 25 policy. Isn't it fair to say what Burkina Faso is doing is something also Caribbean governments doing, including our own, especially pertaining addressing housing and education? Shouldn't we say that we in the Federation also make steps to do those things to empower our people? And also, we talk about solar energy, and we hear the comment that government ain't to blame. But I don't see why we must continue saying government ain't to blame when there are policies put in place and government, let's say, change them policies maybe to something more drastic. Shouldn't we say government ain't to blame? Shouldn't we say if they have capital projects and there is a sale, shouldn't the people know what was the value of the sale and those kind of issues to help to empower the people?
Yeah, let me ask you a question.
So I cannot say why we must continue to say government ain't to blame. That those kind of words are really puzzling a bit.
In terms of what? What do you mean you say? In reference to what? When you say government is not to blame?
I'm not hearing you so clear. Again, a heavy feedback from somewhere.
No, what I'm saying to you, the question I'm asking, you're saying that government is not to blame. I made the remark that government should not be made to blame for what is going on in the economy in terms of the sluggishness. But it sounds like you're saying you're referring to projects. There's a distinction there.
What I'm saying, brother man, too, look at it. Let's really deal with our situation in the Federation. We had a unity administration. Who bring it downfall? Who to blame for that? Imperialist? Capitalist? We are an independent country.
We're not independent.
We are an independent country, no matter what we may talk about it. Is we got to put more input to see that our fully independence is ripened, because we don't get it to the box. So what else we going to continue to say? We ain't independent? Come on. We got to get more factual and realistic to the issues that we are facing.
All right, caller. Thank Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. I wanted to ask you a question, Rascal, that just came to my mind. So, I think it was around last year, so we were talking about, or there was this huge talk about regional integration, right? Where basically the Caribbean, we work together in other areas and we do trade, and so it means that being from St. Kitts and Nevis, I could go to Antigua and Barbuda and start a business. Somebody from Antigua and Barbuda can go to Dominica, and I'm not sure if you guys were following, but there was this sort of a pushback, you know, where for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we're saying no, we don't want to be a part of no regional integration. At least the people on the ground were saying that. In other words, we were not embracing it as I thought we should. So my question is, if we are pushing back against regional integration, then how serious are we about developing, not just developing St. Kitts and Nevis, but developing the region? We are calling for one Caribbean, we are calling for unification, we are calling for reparations, but we can't agree to regional integration.
Yeah. But look at this now. Look at Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. It's one country now, yeah? And it's not 4 years yet. So the point I'm making is that our people doesn't have the proper understanding when it comes to the collectivization and the coming together of our people, because the leadership that we have are not explaining it in its proper way. Why me and you can't unify? Why me and you should be fighting one another when we have a real enemy? I called into a program on a different station last week, and I mentioned Burkina Faso, and the host said that there's no opposition in Burkina Faso. Imperialism is the opposition. White supremacy is the opposition. You see? But we don't look at it that way. We here in St. Kitts, we have different political parties. We got Labour, we got PAM, we got PLP. In Nevis, we got NRP and CCM. Now you tell me, based on that, from a personal point of view, I should oppose myself? Let me look at it that way. So I should cut out my left hand to spite my right hand? So why should there be an opposition? We are one people coming out of exploitation, discrimination. As Malcolm said, we have a common enemy. We have a common oppressor, a common exploiter, and a common discriminator.
But we could have the same goals, or we could have the same interests, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to agree on everything.
No,
so from time to time, you may oppose me and I may oppose you.
No, you can't look at it that way. Listen what I'm saying. We have the same goal.
Go ahead.
It's to achieve the goal. It's the tactic and strategy, that's all.
We have a caller on the line. Let's take this call. Okay, we seem to have lost that caller. But it's 11:55, so we're going to have to stop there with the calls. Okay. Go ahead.
I just want to put this in real quick. When the European nations came together, to carve up Africa, there were different languages spoken amongst them. They had different ideas. But the one thing they came together and they united for, and they knew that they're going to stick together on this, it's to carve up Africa and to have it for their possession, whether you're from Belgium, whether you're from France, whether you was English, it didn't matter. You was, like I said, there was a language barrier, but they made sure that they came together on that particular topic. So what I'm saying, here in the region, here in the Caribbean, we need to change the mindset, and that is something that I've seen that is paramount. The mind, the way that we think here in the Caribbean needs to change. We need to stop looking at you being St. Vincent, and I'm Tomian, and I'm Kittitian, and you're Mount Strachan. We need to break down those barriers and see ourselves as African, full stop. That is the mindset we need our leaders to take. We need more Mia Motleys rising up. And beyond that, because we need a mindset of unification. And that's that. Give thanks.
All right.
But basically,
comments?
brother, Jakaya talk about the Berlin Conference.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't know what the Berlin Conference is about. You know, and what I'm saying, look at we here in the Federation. In 1952, we started to vote. And I point out to you before that the system was designed to keep us under their tutelage. It's designed that way, yes, so the ministers them attack each other. I point out to you again the difference between the secession between St. Kitts and Nevis. It didn't come from us. It got back to 1887. But we keep perpetuating it because of a lack of awareness. So we're saying that the model in the Sahel states is the model for us. You understand? For the unification of us through revolutionary Pan-Africanism. That's what we're talking about. So you talk about the spiritual, the educational, reparation and different levels. All that is included in this thing around the whole 7 principles of Kwanzaa.
It is 11:58, and so we're going to have to pause the conversation because we'll continue it. You've been listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I've been your host, Devonne Cornelius, and in studio with me today was Rascalanji and Prince German, and it was a really good conversation speaking on unification of the black people, African people, Caribbean people. We're all one people.
Yeah, and we just, before you go on, Devon, we just want to let our people know that the mega meeting of Africa First and AES SKN in support of Brother Abraham Chori, AES and Africa, right? Friday the 13th and 27th of June, the African village, the Circus Basses, St. Kitts. You understand? For more information, call 668-1992. Every second and last Friday of the month.
All right. Coming up now is our midday newscast. Stay tuned.
St. Kitts Nevis Music Festival. Retreat to your home away from home at Brighton